Would you dare to sleep in a city erased from every map, where knowledge once burned so bright that even God turned to look before that same light consumed itself into ash? If you would, then close your eyes, because tonight, Pillow of Time will take you there. Through dreams scented with resin and smoke, through the breath of ancient wind that still carries whispers of prayer, past the dunes where our empires are buried, to Baghdad. A city so radiant it blinds, so alive it devours, so fragile that a single wrong breath could dissolve you into the dust of its memory. You don't know when you fell asleep. Perhaps it was after a long day, when the noise of your world faded and all that remained was the rhythm of your own breathing melting into darkness. And somewhere inside that darkness, a sound begins. The oud. Its voice trembles like smoke, delicate, ancient, woven from strings and centuries. It does not come from somewhere, but from within. It has the scent of resin, the heat of desert wind, and the pulse of a city that refuses to die. A strange fragrance enters your lungs, jasmine mixed with old parchment, black ink, and a trace of incense smoke still warm. You open your eyes. Before you lies a city glowing in the night. Not with electricity, but with thousands of oil lamps, each flame breathing atop domes and balconies, reflecting in brass doors and marble pools, spilling like rivers of gold down narrow streets. The air hums. The river Tigris glimmers under the moon like a blade dipped in silver. And above, the sky is heavy with stars, so many, so bright, that you feel they lean close to eavesdrop on the dreams of humankind. Voices drift, water murmurs. The city sighs, the night feels alive, a living being breathing through its 1,000 minarets. You are in Baghdad, the 9th century after Christ, what the world will later call the Golden Age of Islam, a perfect circle of walls, an empire folded into geometry and grace. At its heart stands the golden palace of Caliph al-Mansur, ruler of an empire that stretches from Spain's red cliffs to the sands of India. You do not know how you arrived. Perhaps, as in every dream of Pillow of Time, you are not here to survive, but to witness. Because this Baghdad, brilliant, mysterious, and merciless, will swallow anyone who does not belong to it. The desert wind exhales softly, carrying incense, whispers, and the taste of heat. You close your eyes and step into Baghdad. Baghdad was not built like other cities. It was designed as if drawn by divine hands upon the sand. A perfect circle, etched with a compass by engineers of Persia and Syria, and raised by tens of thousands of craftsmen under the sun's merciless gaze. At the center, the Caliph's golden palace, the radiant core from which 4 grand avenues unfurl like the arms of the sun. From above, Baghdad looks less like a city and more like a living mandala. Each street a vein, each dome a heartbeat, each wall a breath. The outer ring of brick rises 30 meters high, a vast circle of defense and devotion. 4 gates mark its horizons, each one a threshold to a different world. The gate of Khorasan, facing Persia's scholars. The gate of Syria, open to the Mediterranean. The gate of Basra, leading to the Persian Gulf. And the gate of Kufa, the sacred road to Mecca, the heart toward which all prayers turn. As you approach one gate, you feel eyes on you. Guards stand still, their faces half in torchlight, half in suspicion. Strangers do not walk freely here. But this is a dream, and dreams do not respect walls. You slip through unseen, and Baghdad unfolds before you, a labyrinth of motion and sound. Market cries rise and fall like the tide, the clang of bronze, the call of water sellers, the chanting of poets by doorways. Every corner exhales a scent, fresh bread baked on clay ovens, dye bubbling in vats of indigo, brass heated to the color of the sun. The heat presses against your skin like the palm of something ancient. The air tastes of dust and cinnamon. The whole city feels alive, as if it were not built, but born. By afternoon, you find yourself before a great building, its walls pale as parchment, its arches carved with verses from the Quran and the geometry of the stars. This is Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. You expect silence. Instead, you find music, the rhythm of voices debating, of quills scratching parchment, of minds unfolding. Here, hundreds of scholars breathe as one, Persians, Arabs, Greeks, Indians, each a thread in a tapestry of thought. You see an old man, his beard silver, his eyes alight. He bends over a scroll, his fingers trembling with reverence. "I am translating Aristotle," he says without looking up. Nearby, another works on a slate, numbers spiraling across its surface. "I am seeking the truth within Sunya," he murmurs, the Indian word for zero, for nothing, and everything. The air smells of ink and patience. Light seeps in through narrow windows, laying golden fingers on stacks of scrolls. In this circle of thought, Baghdad is the axis of the world. While Europe sleeps in shadow, this city dreams in equations and verses. Knowledge flows here like the river outside, endless, unstoppable. It is said the House of Wisdom holds more than 400,000 manuscripts. When fire will one day reach it and its ashes will fall into the Tigris, the river will turn black with ink, not blood. You touch a thin parchment, on its cover a word, algebra, and you realize beneath these oil lamps, in the hands of these quiet men, the bones of the future are being written. As the sun dips behind the domes, the city transforms. Baghdad exhales and the air becomes perfume. You walk through Al-Kark, the old quarter where the heart of the city beats the loudest. Lanterns sway above crowded stalls. Merchants cry out in Arabic, Persian, Greek, their voices folding into one long, low hymn of desire. Here, even the air has texture, soft with the scent of oud and amber, thick with the smoke of roasting coffee. A boy crushes cardamom under his heel. A woman sells silk dyed in crushed lapis. A poet sings of love lost on the Tigris. The sound of a rabab slips through the smoke, delicate, trembling, like the breath of something wounded yet unwilling to die. You pass a storyteller at a coffee stall. His voice is deep, his hands carving invisible shapes in the air. He speaks of Sinbad, of Aladdin, of Ali Baba, as though they had walked through these alleys only yesterday. Children run barefoot past you, their laughter trailing like ribbons of light. A group of scholars huddles nearby, their cups of coffee steaming as they argue about the orbits of the planets. The stranger sitting across from you lifts his gaze, eyes dark and shining, as though holding the reflection of 100 forgotten cities. "Baghdad," he says softly, "is not a city. It is God's dream, and dreams are never meant to last." You take a sip. The coffee bites your tongue. Bitter, sweet, alive. They say it helps the faithful stay awake to pray. But you understand now, here, coffee keeps them awake to think. The night deepens. The air vibrates with music, and you realize that in Baghdad, the boundary between worship and wonder is made only of breath. You are called to the palace. Guards lead you through hallways glazed with gold, where light ripples along the walls like liquid fire. Your footsteps echo, small, fragile sounds swallowed by marble. And then you see him, the Caliph Harun al-Rashid, the legend of 1001 Nights. He sits upon a throne of pearl and cedar, his robes white as salt, his cloak black, edged with threads of gold. His face is calm, but his eyes contain the desert. "Where do you come from?" he asks. You hesitate. How could you tell him you come from a time when his name is just a chapter in a forgotten textbook? But the Caliph's smile comes slow, knowing, as if he already heard your silence. "Every light," he says, "has its price. When knowledge burns too brightly, the shadows begin to envy." The words fall like embers, small but impossible to extinguish. You bow your head. When you look up again, the golden ceiling seems dimmer, and you sense, though Baghdad is at its peak, its brilliance has already summoned the wind that will one day blow it away. Outside, the call to prayer echoes from a distant minaret. The city breathes. You feel the Caliph's gaze follow you long after you've left the palace gates. The nights in Baghdad begin to change, not colder, just heavier. The House of Wisdom still glows, but the light trembles now, as if afraid of what it reveals. Among the shelves, scholars whisper of things that no longer belong to books: politics, heresy, silence. One burns his manuscript before dawn. The parchment curls like a dying leaf, the ink hissing softly as it vanishes. You ask him why. He looks at you, and his voice is no louder than breath. This light has begun to blind men. From the streets outside come the sounds of prayer, layered, endless, and beneath them the measured rhythm of soldiers' boots. The city divides, faith on one side, reason on the other. A young scholar meets your eyes. He looks frightened and old at the same time. Can wisdom save an empire, he asks. You do not answer. Because you know, history has already written the reply, not in ink, but in ash. Caliph Harun al-Rashid grows old. The palace no longer hums with life. It breathes slow, like a lion sleeping after too many hunts. Beyond the walls, the empire begins to unravel. From Persia to Syria to Egypt, the vassal kings whisper rebellion. The sons of the caliph circle each other like moons chasing the same sun. Al-Amin, the poet, the gentle one, a lover of verses, of nights scented with rose and oud, and of dreams that belong to men too soft for their crowns. Al-Mamun, the thinker, the austere scholar with eyes sharp as steel, a man who worships knowledge and fears ignorance more than death itself. When Harun's breath stills, Baghdad divides. Half prays with the elder son, half follows the younger. Faith faces reason, brother faces brother. You stand on a rooftop by the Tigris, where the night wind smells of metal and fear. Across the river, banners ripple, mirroring each other in the moonlight. Two armies, two faces of the same God. The river shivers between them. A prayer rises, then breaks, and when dawn comes, you hear the sound, steel striking bone, faith devouring itself. That night, you realize no enemy can destroy Baghdad, only Baghdad can. The civil war ends, Al-Mamun reigns. But victory is hollow, a shell filled with silence. He rebuilds the house of wisdom, he summons scholars, opens its doors again to light. But this time, knowledge kneels. The books return, but not all are allowed to speak. Truth must now pass through the sieve of belief. The air smells different, not of ink and curiosity, but of fear. You watch men who once mapped the heavens erase their own stars. You see philosophers burn their notes before the soldiers come knocking. One night, a group of men enters the library. Their faces are wrapped in prayer cloths. Their hands hold torches. They whisper, "By the will of God." Then they drop the fire. Scrolls ignite, 1,000 wings of flame, pages twist, letters flee upward, ink boils and screams. The night sky glows red, and from the distance it looks as though Baghdad itself is burning from within. You chase the flames, but they rise too fast. A single page lands by your feet, its edges curled, its words trembling in the light. Love the truth, even when it makes men hate you. You reach for it, but the page disintegrates, turning to ash, to breath, to nothing. The city smells of burnt ink and disbelief, and for the first time, Baghdad feels afraid of its own light. Years pass. The air grows dry, the songs shorter, then whispers. Merchants bring stories from the far edge of the world, of horsemen who move like storms, whose arrows fall before their shadows arrive. They say the riders come from beyond the river Sir Daria, from the cold grasslands where wolves are gods and silence is law. They call them the Mongols. Baghdad laughs. Who could fear wanderers from the wind? This empire has survived for 5 centuries. It has crushed Persians, defied Byzantines, outlasted Rome itself. But you, standing by the river, feel something else. A vibration beneath the earth, a heartbeat that does not belong to Baghdad. That night, the wind changes. You hear hoofbeats, distant, steady, like drums wrapped in thunder. Each strike of iron on soil brings the smell of cold and ash. The lamps along the Tigris flicker. A flame dies. Another trembles. Baghdad still glows, but the glow has begun to shake. The Caliph al-Mustasim sits upon a throne that gleams but no longer rules. Baghdad, still proud, still golden, is now hollow inside, like a lamp whose oil has thinned. One morning, an envoy arrives, a man from the east, dressed in fur and silence. He kneels before the caliph, and his words, though courteous, fall like cold stones. Submit to Hulagu Khan, brother of the great Khan, and you shall be spared. Resist, and your sky will turn black. The court laughs. They mock the accent, the furs, the smallness of his retinue. The vizier whispers, barbarians always bark before they kneel. The caliph waves his hand, and the envoy is killed, his head displayed at the city gate. But that night, Baghdad does not sleep. The dogs whimper, the stars fade, and far beyond the horizon the steppe exhales. 100,000 hooves begin to move. January 1258. The air tastes of iron. The horizon grows darker each day, not from clouds, but from dust. From the watchtowers you see them, riders in endless rows, banners that breathe like fire. Their faces are hidden, their silence is heavier than prayer. The Mongols encircle Baghdad like a tightening ring. No messenger leaves, no supply enters. The caliph orders the walls to be manned. He calls for faith, for the same God who once blessed Harun al-Rashid's golden nights. But the soldiers' hands tremble. They hear the drums, not beating, but pulsing, like the heartbeat of an approaching God. On the seventh day, the first stone from a Mongol trebuchet flies. It lands within the city, crushing a minaret. The muezzin's call stops mid-note. Children cover their ears. Mothers whisper the shahada. Men pray, though none know if God still listens to Baghdad. The ground quakes. The air thickens with dust and fear. You taste it, a bitter flavor like copper and ash. The siege lasts 7 days, 7 suns swallowed by smoke. On the 8th, the walls crack. The Mongols flood in. They move without sound, their blades cutting through prayer, through breath, through time. The Tigris runs black, not with ink yet, but with blood. You see men slaughtered in the streets, women clutching infants as if they could hold back the tide of death. The libraries, those sanctuaries of light, are broken open. The soldiers drag the books to the river. They laugh as they throw them in. Scrolls unfold upon the water like wings, soaking, sinking, bleeding ink. The Tigris turns darker, darker still, until it mirrors the night. They say for 7 days the river ran black with words. For 7 nights no one heard a bird sing. You wander through the ruins, ash clinging to your skin like memory. And somewhere in the wind you think you still hear the oud, the same note that once led you here, but now it's warped, broken, played by hands that tremble. Baghdad does not scream. It exhales, and in that last breath it returns to dust. For days, the wind carries nothing but silence. No prayer, no laughter, only the faint crackle of wood still burning under stone. The Mongols leave behind a city that no longer resembles itself. The mosques are hollow, the gardens trampled, and the air still hums with something ancient, as if knowledge itself refused to die quietly. You walk through what was once the House of Wisdom. The marble floor, once polished by scholars' sandals, now glitters with shards of glass and ink. A charred page clings to a pillar. You kneel. The words are half gone, but a single line remains, ink bleeding into the paper like veins. Light has no homeland. You close your eyes. The wind moves through the ruins, soft, almost tender, as if Baghdad itself were whispering farewell. But there's something else beneath the ash, a pulse, a memory refusing to die. And you understand, fire cannot consume what has already become thought. The survivors leave, not as conquerors, not as believers, but as carriers of something sacred. They cross deserts. They hide manuscripts inside cloth, scribbles inside prayer. A physician flees to Damascus, his satchel heavy with notes on anatomy. A translator rides west to Aleppo, carrying fragments of Aristotle. An astronomer hides his charts beneath bread and walks until the stars above change shape. Wherever they go, they plant seeds of Baghdad, small, fragile, glowing things. Centuries later, in the libraries of Venice, in the candlelight of Florence, and beneath the vaulted ceilings of Paris, those seeds begin to sprout. The scholars there open their Latin books and find Arabic words written between the lines. They read of algebra, of optics, of the movements of the planets, and the world once dim begins to glow again. But none of them know the cost. None can imagine the city that paid for their dawn. You stand on a ship now. The sea beneath you whispers. In your hand, a fragment of parchment, its letters blurred by time and salt. Baghdad is behind you, not as a place, but as a feeling. A ghost in your breath. You look toward the west. The sky there is pink with possibility. A gull cries, its wings catching light like the flicker of a lamp reigniting. You remember the words on that pillar, light has no homeland. Perhaps that is true. Perhaps Baghdad's glow was never meant to stay in one place. Perhaps knowledge is like the wind. It leaves when you try to own it, but it returns when you listen. As the ship drifts into the fog, you feel something lift from your chest. Not sorrow, but release. The world moves on. But somewhere in the shifting mist, you think you still hear a voice. Soft, distant, whispering in Arabic, then in Latin, then in every tongue that ever dreamed. It says, "Remember us not for our ruins, but for the light we carried through the dark." Centuries have passed, the world has turned, and yet Baghdad lingers, not on the map, but in the mind of dreamers. In Venice, the air smells of salt and parchment. The canals mirror the moon, and under their quiet arches, merchants whisper names long forgotten. Al-Hazen, Avicenna, Al-Khwarizmi. They wear masks of gold, drink from cups of silver, but their eyes gleam with hunger. Not for conquest, but for knowledge. The same hunger that once lit the lamps of the House of Wisdom now glows beneath Italian domes. In a painter's workshop, a young apprentice sketches circles upon the floor, murmuring words he doesn't understand. Al-Jabr, Alchemia, Al-Ittihad. He doesn't know that these sounds are the echoes of Baghdad. In a candlelit monastery, a monk copies a page from an Arabic manuscript, carefully, reverently, his quill shaking if he fears the words might burn through the paper. Outside, the bells of Venice chime midnight, and you realize the rhythm of the bells is the same as the heartbeat of Baghdad, transplanted into another century. The world thinks the Renaissance was born here, in marble, in music, in faith reborn. But you know better. It was born in fire. It was born in ash. It was born the night Baghdad died. You are no longer on the ship. You are adrift in something else. Time, maybe, or memory. The stars shift. They no longer form constellations of war, but of thought. You see the past folding into the present, scrolls turning into screens, ink into light. And for a moment you wonder, is the world today any different from Baghdad? Still burning? Still learning? Still forgetting too fast? The voice returns. The same one that led you through the desert, through the smoke and the prayers. It whispers so softly you almost mistake it for wind. Every city believes it will last forever. None ever do, but the dream remains. You look down at your hands. There's dust there, black, fine, glimmering. You blow gently. It rises, dances in the moonlight, and becomes stars. The oud begins again, not broken, but whole, a single haunting note floating across centuries. Baghdad breathes once more, not in brick or gold, but in every mind that dares to remember. There are cities born to live and cities born to be remembered. Baghdad, the lamp that once outshone the stars, became ash. But those ashes, they drifted across the desert, across the sea, into the hands of dreamers who built with memory. And so the light returned, in Florence, in Venice, in Paris, under new skies, in new tongues, but still the same flame. You hear bells again, not of Baghdad, but of Venice, echoing across water. And somewhere between the waves and the stars, you feel it, the soft hum of something eternal. Perhaps tomorrow night you will not trut Neumodem, not in Baghdad, but in Venice, the city of reflections where books once burned in the East are reborn in ink and glass. Sleep now, traveler. The lamps are dim. The sea is calm. Baghdad is gone. But the light never dies. Sleep well with Pillow of Time.